Welcome into the Fantasy Playmakers podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Popolars. You can find me on Twitter at PopesFFH. I'm joined as always by my co-host Ryan Mackey, who is at Mackey_FFB. And today we have a special guest with us today is Micheal Bauer from the Dynasty Rewind. You can find him on Twitter at RewindCEO. And you just got to throw in that he's a fellow Kylan Hill truther, so we're going to get along pretty well. Hey, what's up, Mike?
How you guys doing tonight? Excited to be here.
I'm excited. I mean, for me, I'm always into the running backs, so as soon as we get to dive into them, I love the running backs more so than any position. What's up with you, Ryan? How's it going?
Not too bad, man. How was your guys' Easter? You guys do anything exciting?
Not too much. I just had a couple family parties, got way too much candy. It doesn't help me right now with the like COVID-20 that I put on. So
COVID-20,
right?
Yeah, same here. I just we went over to my aunt's house. Just hung out. Really, that's it. I would have preferred to just stay at home, but I got overruled. So
yeah, I said the same thing. Kind of got overruled and yelled at. I'm like, we gotta go, But
yeah, and then it's like, well, can't we just stay here? I only get so much time off. It's like, why are you so antisocial? Why do you hate my family? I'm like,
it's not that. I just,
you're listening, but you're not listening. You're not understanding. You know what I mean? It's like trying to tell people why you like Kylan Hill better than Travis Etienne than everybody. It's not about who's faster or who's stronger. It's about, I just think Kylan Hill could be a 3-down back in the NFL, and I don't know if I see it for Travis Etienne personally.
See, I agree.
I
think
fair to hear that argument.
Yeah, right. Ryan, how was your Easter? Since you asked the question.
Oh man, my weekend wasn't really much of a weekend. I had 4 days off of work. The company I work for actually gave us today off as like a wellness day type thing for working through COVID and all that stuff. So it was like, oh, cool, I got 4 days off. But then Friday we were jam-packed full of stuff. Saturday we had to do all of our Easter dinners and things like that because yesterday I had to take my daughter down to Pittsburgh to have a follow-up appointment today. So I just got back into town with that, I don't know, maybe like an hour and a half ago.
Well, I appreciate the dedication. It's could have easily moved it with a phone call, but either way.
No, we had a guest. I didn't want to change anything with the guests and all that stuff. So
listen, you tell me you got something going on family and you got to push it back. We push it back. It's that easy. Family's always first. So
no, we're good.
But anyways, let's before we dive in, I just want to mention that today we had some nice breaking news there. Sam Darnold gets sent to the Carolina Panthers for a 6th round, a 4th round, and a 2nd next year. Ryan, did you get to see that on your ride back in, or?
I did actually. We were actually taking a little. I got 3 kids, so we had a little break, and I actually came up while I was waiting for them to get done using the bathroom and doing their business. So I saw that, and I didn't get a chance to really look into the details, and I didn't really think about it. I was thinking about it a little bit on the way home, but I think it takes Carolina out of drafting a quarterback because they gave up the capital for him. I think that he's an upgrade from Teddy Bridgewater. So I don't think they're going to go quarterback anymore in the draft like I thought they were going to, but it makes it a little bit more interesting in that draft slot now. Maybe they did trade down to one of these other teams that are looking to move up. Maybe New England jumps up there or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I like the trade. And a lot of people are saying stock down for DJ Moore, which I don't understand. And I get it. Sam Darnold's track record doesn't look that great. His head coach was Adam Gase for the last couple of years. I mean, look at when all these Kenyon Drake, Ryan Tannehill, the list can go on and on. They get out from Adam Gase, they do fine. I think it's still early. Sam Darnold's going to a great system in Carolina. Tons of playmakers around. If he gets the chance to shine, who's to say he can't be better than what Teddy Bridgewater did last year? I mean, I think he can be. He's pretty mobile too. There's a game last year, I can't remember what it was, but I think he had like a really long 90-yard touchdown run, something like that. And everyone was putting on Twitter, hey, if you actually started Sam Darnold, show me your lineup. And I actually had, I was out of necessity. I want to say that. But I had Sam Darnold started in a few super flex spots. So Yeah, I think he can be mobile enough. He's got a decent arm. If you get some good coaching, there's no reason to think he can't be a solid contributor on your team. I also got offered a Sam Darnold trade today. I have Sam Darnold. Somebody offered me the 3-6 in a super flex league for Sam Darnold. Yeah, that was a big decline. So
I think he was hoping you maybe you didn't see the news yet. I think that's what he was hoping for.
I get alerts on my phone too, pal. So nice try though.
But yeah, I give him kudos for the try. But yeah, I saw something too that I don't remember who it was. Someone posted that they used Joe Burrow as an example, but Burrow in 2018 had 16 touchdowns, and then the year that he got paired with Brady, he had 60. So, I mean, I like it. I think obviously Darnold is at least as good as Teddy Bridgewater, and I think he should win that battle. Obviously, with the capital they gave up, I think they're hoping that he does. And I agree with Ryan. I think that they're out of the quarterback sweepstakes. I hope that maybe they do stay there and they do take Kyle Pitts. I've seen a lot of people talk about that. That would be pretty sweet. Add that playmaker in that position that they lack. So,
what do you mean? Ian Thomas is just as good as Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, I'm just saying, I don't want to hurt the Kyle Pitts truthers,
Close.
All right, let's dive right into these rookies here. We're going to start out with Elijah Mitchell. He is 5'10", 212 pounds. He is out of Louisiana Lafayette. The past 2 seasons, he has produced over 1,500 total yards. Basically, his 2019 season was pretty much a blow up. He had a 1,000-yard rushing season with 16 touchdowns. And then this past year, with the shortened season, was actually still pretty respectable at 878 yards and 8 touchdowns. Ryan, how do you feel about Elijah Mitchell?
So I'm just gonna start off by saying that I absolutely hated watching him on tape.
Same.
He was so inconsistent to me. Like there would be times where he would make these beautiful cuts in the open field, and he would be nice and patient behind the line and find nice holes and things like that. And then next play, next highlight you'd see, he'd be running into his lineman when he had a nice hole. All he had to do was make a little jump cut to the left or to the right, and he would have a nice little hole and break a nice 10, 15-yard runoff. And he was just really frustrating for me to watch, because I was just like, man, there's a hole right there. And then the very next play, he'd be making a nice little cut, being patient. So he was a little frustrating to watch. But I like his size. I think he's got pretty good size for the next level. He's really physical and is always trying to fall forward. Like he lowers his shoulder and is constantly trying to get that extra yard or two by falling forward. Has pretty soft hands, but I think I would have liked to see him get a few more opportunities in the passing game at the college level, especially at a school like Louisiana, where he probably should have been more of a weapon. Pretty good.
If you look back to 2018, I mean, he did get 20 receptions and he had 340 yards. So, I mean, he does have that receiving ability. I think for me, he kind of popped with the pro day. It was really surprising because on film, I thought he looked a lot slower than the 4.46 that he ran. But, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't super high on him. I still have him kind of in that just around 10 range in the class. And Mike, how do you feel about Elijah Mitchell?
He's good, and that's it. He's not overwhelmingly good at any one thing. On the Dynasty Rewind, we used to play something called NFL or XFL. And if I had to take a stab at it, that's just where we would think a player would really excel at. I'd say he'd be a very fantastic XFL running back. He's got good contact balance. His vision is decent. He's a one-cut runner. So you give him one cut and he's gone. He's fast, but not like really fast or anything like that. His initial burst is good, but I don't think his long speed is anything to write home about. He's more powerful than elusive. So there's going to be a spot for this guy on an NFL roster if he can catch fire and have like a James Robinson type rise to start him, because, Ray Garvin did say that he was this year's James Robinson. I could easily see that if he gets in the right spot. But where's the right spot? You look around the NFL and just, I was thinking today about Teddy Bridgewater. I saw a report that he could be moved. Where's he going to go? Where are the real spots that a starting running back are going to go that aren't going to get taken up like draft capital? So by draft capital, sorry. So I think the rise to the top of the mountain is going to be really hard for a guy like Elijah Mitchell. And I think this is going to be a case where he's going to get overdrafted. I'm going to be happy for anybody in my league to overdraft him because at the end of the day, specifically, I play mostly Dynasty. We want to make sure that our rosters are basically matchup proof, right? Like we want to start all starters. Or if we're starting 2s or 3s, they're a guy like James White with some PPR upside. I don't really see that for Elijah Mitchell. I think he might be a guy that always has a job, but it might not be on your fantasy team. And we need to, I think part of the problem too is, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like as fantasy analysts, guys get too enamored with the prospects and this and that. Here's what he's going to be at the next level. What does the NFL think about these guys? What are they really going to do with them? There's going to be circumstances where they're better for an NFL team than a fantasy team. That screams Elijah Mitchell to me. And I like his talent. I think he's good. I would have liked to see a little more out of the main guy on a team from the Sun Belt Conference, to be honest with you. Just like I have concerns about a guy like Trey Lance. I'm going to take Mac Jones over Trey Lance all day. Mac Jones, he only had one season. It was in the SEC. He won the national championship. Trey Lance had one season in the FCS. And I know that Carson Wentz did too, but he had 3 full seasons as a starter, won multiple national championships. That's off subject, but we have to look at the body of work. We have to look at the competition. So I'm off of Elijah Mitchell, and I don't think I'll be drafting him anywhere, to be honest with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. I think that everybody almost the same way that I said. They saw that 4.46 at the 40. He measures out pretty well. He has that typical size, and I think people are gonna, like you said, overdraft him. I agree. I think he's definitely useful in the NFL. But you're right. I believe it was, I'm not sure who, it blanks my mind now, but someone posted, and I think there's only 3 or 4 spots really open for a full-time starting running back in the NFL.
Exactly.
And outside of the top 5 guys in this class, who's really going to hopefully land in one of those spots? I think you're going to end up with a lot of guys that are running back by committee type running backs that are useful as like a plug-in if you need them, or if their starter goes down almost. And I could see that, like you had mentioned, with Elijah Mitchell. Another one that I personally think that's going to be more useful to a NFL team than your fantasy team is Javian Hawkins. He's 5'9", 196 pounds, and he is out of Louisville. He's fairly productive in 2019 as he had a 1,500-yard season, and he had 9 touchdowns. And this past season as well, he also had 822 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns. However, his size for me is a little concerning. Mike, how do you feel about Javian Hawkins?
So I do like, is it Javanian or Javian? I don't know. I'm terrible with names. So we're just
so am I.
We're gonna go with, we'll just call him Hawkins out of Louisville. First of all,
watching the
Louisville film is boring.
It's so bad.
It's like this team should be so much better, and this just kind of stinks.
It's almost on Auburn level, honestly.
Man, dude, Seth Williams film
it's bad.
I think I tweeted out, like, I feel bad for Auburn's fans watching this crap. Like, this is terrible. But back to Javian Hawkins, I liked his initial burst, but unlike Elijah Mitchell, I think he had good breakaway speed. The dude is fast. And 5'9", 196, I don't know what he weighed in at his pro day. My height and weight could be a little outdated here. He's got a really good burst. My problem is, and I'll use a good reference here, you guys are Bills fans, solid contact is going to do him in every time. So if he has to try to shake off Matt Milano's just going to square him up. He's going to take him down. He's not overly elusive, but he's going to need an elite offensive line to really be productive at all. And his size tells me he projects more like, like the scat back, receiving back. But then I look at his stats, and it's like, where's the 21 career receptions for less than 200 yards? So I don't know what to do with this small but fast but not overly physical back that really can't shake off defenders, that has terrible blocking. Like, what do we do with a guy like this? You have to hope he goes to a good system. And honestly, I think the Chiefs would be the best spot for him. Andy Reid always has a way of mixing in other guys. And Darwin Thompson, I know, is still there, but come on, what's he going to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think
there, right? Like, so Javian Hawkins would be a perfect complement to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I don't know if they want a guy with size because CH is smaller, this guy's smaller. You know
I
what I
could
mean?
almost see like them taking more of that Elijah Mitchell style, just get a little bit more size, someone
That
in
would-
that type of area.
And you're not going to need a ton of draft capital for a
Mhm.
guy like Elijah Mitchell, and they can't afford it too because they're going to start paying these guys a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
hey, what about on this list? And you could tell me, is there anybody that the Bills are drafting? Because I have people asking me, like, what are the Bills going to do? I'm like, I don't know what the Bills are going to do. I'm an Eagles fan. Like, what do you want from
Yeah.
me?
I mean, I'd like to see him
Zach
take
Moss?
somebody. I'd like to see him take somebody. I personally never liked Zach Moss last year. I was very upset when they made the pick, but also I think Devin Singletary proved that he really can't handle the full load. And I really want that. My heart says, like, I want someone at 30. I want Najee Harris. I want ETN. I want Javonte Williams. I want like a Kylan Hill. I want somebody like that.
I don't think Ryan wants that. He's just shaking his head. No.
Yeah, I know. But the tough thing is to look at the offense, and they're not going to use them that way. You know what I mean? Like, they need a receiving back is really what they need because, I mean, they just don't run the ball. I mean, I know that they were ineffective last year, and that might have been part of it, but I feel like Dable and the Bills are just fine with dropping back 50 times and just chucking the ball. I think with Josh Allen and the way he progressed, that they're just like, let him throw it. You know what I mean? So I honestly don't know. If it's anybody, I feel like it's going to be a third round guy again. And because they need help everywhere else as far as like corners and edge rushers. And honestly, in this list, maybe if we start getting down to like maybe Sermon if they go with someone bigger, but I don't know. Maybe Demetric Felton if they want somebody that's kind of got that more of a little bit passing history.
Rhamondre Stevenson would look good in Buffalo.
Yeah, I don't like him, but he would fit well.
I mean, you want a guy that's going to bang between the tackles and just knock people over. There's your guy. But again, we'll talk about him a little bit later. I mean, I don't want to spoil enough for everybody, but
right,
really good in Buffalo.
Ryan, how about Javian Hawkins? How do you feel? Do you want him here?
In Buffalo, no, I don't want to be in Buffalo. So Mike said he didn't know what his pro day was, so I took it upon myself to update or look at it real quick. He got listed at 5'8", 193 at his pro day. So inch shorter, a little bit lighter, but not terribly off. No. I don't know. I was kind of indifferent about him. He's kind of another one of those weird guys where his vision was really inconsistent. Like the line of scrimmage, he would miss holes or he would run to his blockers. But then at the next level, he actually has really good vision. Like in the open field, he actually has pretty decent vision, and he does have the lateral agility to make people miss and things like that. But he would rather for a smaller guy, it's weird to see him want to truck people more than he wants to like juke them out. You know what I mean? Like you see somebody at apparently 5'8", 193, you'd think they'd be a little bit more like shifty and making people miss that way. But he actually looks to try to truck people more often than not, which is fine. But it's not gonna work nearly as well as he thought it would in college at the pro level. Because like you said, like Milano gets him in the open field. Milano's gonna bring him down. And other linebackers are bringing. He's not going to run through Milano or the NFL linebackers nearly as well as he did at Louisville, and he didn't really do it that well there. So it's just kind of weird to see him do that type of thing at the college level, and especially that size.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he uses his speed a little. I mean, he relies on it, and I don't know if I don't know if he lacks like that trust in his ability to make the guy miss, and that's why he's just trying to run him over more so. Or I'm not too sure, but he's not a guy that I'm really high on. I think I have him ranked as my least favorite out of this group and almost one of the least favorite of the running back group. But I know the NFL is really high on him, and it makes me second think myself on him. But I just feel like he's kind of just seems to be a gadget guy, in my opinion. Like Mike had said, he's not very good in the blocking game. You would think he has more receiving than he does, and he really doesn't. So he's one of the guys I really don't know what to do with, to be honest.
Well, one thing you do have to remember, and I think a lot of people forget this, is that when you say things like the NFL is really high on him, the NFL does not care about your fantasy team.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
trying to win football games. They're going to get guys in there that fit their system. You know what I mean? So they might want to draft a guy like, if we get this guy 5 plays a game, we're good. He's going to be effective, and he'll get whatever, and that's fine. And then us as fantasy analysts, that's such a great landing spot. Running back 1. You know, it's one of the things where you got to tone it back. Like, you know,
That's
you
a good
remember
point.
when we thought Aaron Jones was going to be a free agent. Remember AJ Dillon's season for a minute there on Twitter, and how terrible Twitter was for that couple days. And I kept
I
telling
saw a
people,
couple people way overdraft him.
pump the brakes. And then, you know, then people tell me I'm crazy, and I'm not.
So I saw Hawkins go in the 5th. That's the highest I saw him go was in the 5th to the Niners.
Okay, now if he goes to the Niners, I'm going to be a little bit interested. You know, Kyle Shanahan, that system that he runs can make anybody relevant, and we saw that it was the same way when his dad was the head coach with the Broncos, and later Washington. So that interests me, and I think they're going to take a quarterback at 3. I think it's Mac Jones. So again, they're going to have to go for some value at the running back position, but that's what really works well for them. You look at Jerick McKinnon; they paid him a ton of money. It didn't work out. If a guy like Hawkins goes there, I'll pay a little bit more attention. That's going to slide him up my board a little bit for me.
Yeah, my problem with that landing spot is that I feel like they're so deep at running back still. Like they still have Mostert and they still have Jeff Wilson, and
But they always get hurt. So someone's going to play. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Mostert will probably most likely get hurt. Jeff Wilson seems to be pretty relatively durable though. So
I like it. I like the banter. I like it. Why don't we move on to Kahlil Herbert? He is 5'9", 212 pounds out of Virginia Tech. He's a 5-year college starter. He played out of those 5 years, he produced 2,900 yards and 22 touchdowns, and he produced 297 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. Now, in those 5 years, they weren't a full 5 years. I do know he had some injuries in there. But how do we feel about Kahlil Herbert? I saw a thread today. Somebody had put out that they were pretty high on him. And I feel like this is one of the prospects that a lot of people are pretty far apart on. I feel like there's a lot of people that just are staying away from him based on, I believe, most likely the 5-year part and his age. And then there's some people that just love what Herbert brings as far as a runner, which is pretty patient runner. He keeps his feet moving. He's got the size. He gets downhill. How do we feel, Mike?
You nailed a lot of the stuff that I have written down here. The vision and patience is great. Those quick feet early he's going. He's kind of slippery, but he's powerful with a good burst too. So I think he can be, so far, the guys that we've talked about, he's probably my favorite. Don't let the age deter you. A lot of people are knocking Najee because he's 23 or he will be 23 or something like that. So when you're looking at your rosters, do you plan on having this guy for 10 years on your team? Most running backs are 1 contract guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I personally feel like he'd be a really good fit with the Denver Broncos. I don't know why. I just said he'd be a good Bronco that came to my mind. Great in the open field. He can be a grinder, but he also has that good breakaway speed. So I'm still undecided. Like, I want to watch a little bit more. Is this guy a first, second out back? Can he be a complete 3-down back? I think he can. I do have to mention, though, it's required by my co-host, Nate Christian. Puka Williams is the reason that this guy transferred from Kansas to Virginia Tech. Nate is a huge Puka Williams fan. So I do have to – I'm obligated to mention that. But
you're good.
We're not talking about Puka tonight, right? No, thank God. I've heard enough about him. So
right.
I do like Kahlil Herbert. And I think he's a guy that if he's not a 1, he's like a strong 1B on a team. Running back by committee stuff.
Nice. I mean, I personally am not as high on him, but I mean, I could see why you would be. You know what I mean? He does do a lot of stuff pretty well. He actually does do pretty well in the pass blocking too. So, I mean, I could see him, like you had said, where he could probably handle the 3-down back role. And Denver's actually a nice, interesting spot. I kind of like that. I mean, he wouldn't necessarily have to get leaned on as they have Melvin Gordon still. And possibly next year, if they move on from Gordon, it could be his team to take over. How do you feel, Ryan, about Kahlil Herbert?
I actually liked him a little bit. Like Mike had said, he's probably my favorite of the people we've already talked about so far. But you hit most of the points that I was going to hit on. Like his patience, I really liked his patience. I liked his ability to sit behind the line and kind of wait for the play to develop, as opposed to just kind of trying to rush through something or making something happen out of nothing. I also like the fact that he returned kicks. I don't know why, but I like that aspect of a running back's ability, because it means that he will have other ways to get on the field as opposed to just being just a pure running back. But other than that, he seems to be brought down pretty easily. I think he needs to go to somewhere that has a good offensive line to be successful. I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that is kind of team proof. Like I don't think he can go somewhere and anywhere and be a good back. But like Mike had said, I think he could be a good. I don't know. Jeremy might have said this, so correct me if I'm wrong. But he would be a good 1B option as opposed to being an alpha in the backfield.
Yeah, it was Mike. You were right.
So I just brought up Philip Lindsay's stats because he's no longer with the Denver Broncos. If Kahlil Herbert were to go there, Philip Lindsay had 502 rushing yards last year and 1 touchdown. So it was a down year for him, but we know, he had some injuries last year. He only had 7 catches for 28 yards, so not much there. But I think Kahlil Herbert could easily do that. I think he's probably roughly the same size as a Philip Lindsay. I
think they're close.
Why I think it would be a good spot. Melvin Gordon is getting a little bit older, and if he shows out well, that team's going to have some other pressing needs as well. They're going to have to pay Cortland Sutton. Jerry Jeudy's going to have to get paid eventually. Noah Fant. I don't know what they're doing at quarterback. So this seems to be a position that NFL teams don't have a problem saving money on anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it. I mean, even look at the Bills, like we'd mentioned it earlier with like who we think would go there. And I mean, the same thing. They were going offensive heavy, quote unquote, in the draft the last couple of years. And they still waited to the 3rd round and waited almost for just a guy to kind of put back there. And that's not that Herbert's necessarily just a guy, but I agree. I think that out of all the landing spots, I think Denver's a nice spot. So I think you hit it on the nail on the head there, Mike. Let's move on to one of my kind of more polarizing-y kind of type players that I really like a lot, but I don't know if I should or what his actual role in the NFL will be. But Demetric Felton, he is 5'10", 210 pounds, and he's out of UCLA. In 2019, he only rushed for 331 yards. However, he mostly played wide receiver that year, and he had produced 594 yards receiving with 4 touchdowns. This past season, when Joshua Kelly moved on, they went to Demetric Felton as the lead back, and he rushed for 668 yards, 5 touchdowns, while having 22 receptions, 159 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Ryan, I think you like Demetric Felton, so I'm going to start you out with him. How do you feel about Demetric Felton?
So he was one of the guys that I was supposed to do a rookie profile on, and I ended up doing it, but apparently didn't send it in at time. So
way to go!
I did do a profile on him, and I do like him. The problem is that where are they going to put him at the NFL level? Like, are they gonna have him play wide receiver? Are they gonna have him play running back? I think he's listed as a running back.
It depends where you look. He's listed in like 2 different spots. Like I think Fantasy Pros, where we use like for our rankings at yards per, has him as a wide receiver, but other places I see running back. So I think he's kind of like in between. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious to see what exactly he's going to be, because for me as a running back, I don't see him as much of like a between the tackle type of runner. So I don't see him as a 3-down back. But as a slot guy, he's kind of interesting. But he just, like I said, it's hard for me to really gauge what he's going to do because I don't really know where he's going to play. Like I have no idea what he's going to. I guess landing spot's going to be a big thing for him, because if they land to a running back needy team, then obviously he's probably going to play a lot more running back, or he could go the Curtis Samuel type route and be a gadget type player or something like that. The one thing I really wasn't a huge fan of was, if I did my math correctly, and I might be wrong here, 4-year career, barely over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. So
a little concerning there. He was a little bit more productive in a not so great defensively conference. So it's just, I don't know. I'm a little. Get back to me on him when we figure out his landing spot, because then I'll do a little bit more. Analysis on it. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with you, and that's like I said right there in the in like the opening there, leading into him. Like I just don't know what his role is going to be. He's just a dynamic playmaker, I think, and he does a lot of stuff fairly well. It's just like, what is his role at the next level? And I think the landing spot, like you said, is going to be key for him. But I just like him. I think he just makes plays, and he's just a football player, in my opinion. I think that he's going to find a way on the field somehow, some way. And I don't know, he might be another one of those like where he's more useful to an NFL team than our fantasy teams. But depending on landing spot, he might be enough for at least some type of a flex type play or a plug in every now and then. Mike, how do you feel about Demetric Felton?
Ryan hit the nail on the head. I thought watching film on him, he's Curtis Samuel. Just the fact that for 3 years he was a wide receiver, then the last year he was running back. He's extremely versatile. So if he goes to a place where he's used like Curtis Samuel was used in Carolina last year, he's going to be good. Now, when you're talking about the stats and being concerned, this is what you get when Chip Kelly coaches a team. I'm an Eagles fan, so I'm going to take my shots at no balls Chip any chance I can. Sorry about cursing on here. As far as when he's a running back, I think he's very patient with good vision. He does not go down easy. He's always, feet always moving, always going forward. But again, another guy, he does everything well, but isn't overly special. He's just a fundamentally sound player. He's good he's aware of what's going on around him. Now, again, like you said, or was this Kahlil Herbert you were talking about returning kicks? I'm sorry,
Herbert, Ryan had mentioned return kicks. I think Felton did, though, too. I think you're right.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yep.
But things like that, people say, well, that doesn't count for fantasy points. No, but that counts for brownie points with your coaches. And when you do things like that, it gets you on the field. So that's why I say blocking is important. Picking up blitzes and stuff like that, playing special teams, willingness to be a gunner. When you're going to be a late round guy like Demetric Felton, like Kahlil Herbert, like most of these guys that we're talking about this week, you have to do the little nuances. So when we have a fundamentally sound player like Demetric Felton, and the fact that he's willing to do things that other guys with high draft capital might not want to do, might keep them on the bench. Here's a guy right here. If you get a couple games out of him and you move him for good value, do it. Strike while the iron's hot. He's going to be very landing spot dependent, like you guys said, but I do like the way he plays. If he went somewhere where he was like a wide receiver 3, like if he went to Philadelphia, I'd be happy about that. Not as an Eagles fan, but for fantasy, they need a wide receiver 3. First of all, they could really use one, but I don't know what that offense is going to look like yet. So a landing spot like that. Okay, well, Indianapolis. Be good in Indianapolis. They have Pittman, they have T.Y. Hilton, and
Paris Campbell,
who's always hurt. So maybe a spot like that would be good for him.
Yeah, or if he replaces Curtis Samuel in Carolina.
There you go.
You know what I mean? There's definitely options. Let's move on to the complete opposite of Demetric Felton. Let's come to the thumper here that we're going to talk about. Rhamondre Stevenson, 6 foot, 227, out of Oklahoma. The past 2 years, he has produced a 500-yard season and a 600-yard season, one with 6 touchdowns and one with 7. However, he was suspended for some off-the-field issues. However, he's not just necessarily a thumper. I mean, he did produce 200 yards receiving this past season. I will let Mike start us off with Rhamondre Stevenson. As he had mentioned earlier, it seems like he might like him more than I do.
I do, and here's another guy. I'm watching him. I'm like, this dude is LeGarrette Blount. Seriously, like he's big. He's not overly fast. I saw him hurdle people, just the way he would stiff arm people down. I'm like, that looks like LeGarrette Blount in his prime. That might not be a bad thing, but for fantasy, I think he's going to be extremely touchdown dependent. He's going to be a grinder more than anything. While I think he can be more than that, I feel like that's what he's going to be used as. He doesn't give you much in the receiving game. So I would be excited if he went to a place like the Dallas Cowboys, who would never draft him because they have Ezekiel Elliott and then Tony Pollard waiting in the wings. Or if he went to a place like the Minnesota Vikings, but they have Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison. So again, it's like a lot of these guys, and the more I look at this running back class, the more I kind of hate it. Like we have those big guys, and it's very, very top heavy, and then after that, it's just a lot of I don't know.
There's a lot of question marks with a lot of these guys, depending on just something in general. They all have some type of issue or I had this discussion. It was actually on a Clubhouse a little while back. It was even about wide receivers. I think this class is pretty deep at receiver, but it comes down to, again, where we were talking about these running backs, like where are these guys going to play? Like, yeah, I get talent gets reflushed in, but with how good the class was last year, and even the year before, you had a couple good guys. Like, there's not a lot of spots that you're going to have, especially for the running backs. There's literally, I think, 4. I mean, you're really talking the Jets, the Bills, the Dolphins, 3 of which are from the AFC East. Then you could argue Atlanta needs one. Then possibly San Francisco, if you want to say that they need to get more of a full-time workhorse. Houston, you could argue, needs one. Pittsburgh. So, I mean, maybe 7. I mean, outside of that, I mean, Seattle re-signed Carson. Green Bay brought in Jones. Like, I mean, you could even argue Miami doesn't really need one. I mean, Gaskins was definitely useful last year for them. And
Savon Ahmed, when he played very well for them too. So.
Exactly. And I mean, you could even argue the Bills aren't going to take one. I mean, like we had mentioned earlier, where you mentioned who you want them to take, and like their offense necessarily doesn't lean towards having the need for this lead running back. I mean, obviously everybody will take one because it's going to help you no matter what. But I just feel like you're running out of landing spots because, I mean, I don't know. It just concerns me that, like you had mentioned, where like this bottom half of the class, really, what are their roles going to be? I feel like outside of landing in a spot, almost even like say New England or a place that already runs like a running back by committee successfully might be the best option for some of these guys. Like we had said, even New England or San Fran, where they or just shuffle through running backs and make them all valuable versus say landing in, like you mentioned, say Pittsburgh even. What is Pittsburgh going to do there? Are they going to go high draft capital, or are they going to try and run with Benny Snell and McFarland?
I hope not.
Or do they bring Connor back? I mean, I think I saw some things that there was rumors he might come back. I mean,
didn't he sign somewhere?
No, I don't think James Conner. There was mentions that he was going to go to Miami, but then I don't think he is signed yet. I could be wrong.
I haven't seen anything signed yet.
I'd also wait to see if the Giants draft anybody.
Yeah, they could.
Saquon Barkley has been banged up the last couple of years. So maybe if they want to make it just a slight committee, like 75 Saquon and running back. I mean, the 25%, that could be serviceable in a flex running back 3 role.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Rhamondre Stevenson fits that bill for the Giants.
No.
Saquon's powerful enough as is. They don't need a power back. But it would be interesting to see if they put any draft capital on it. I don't think they draft a wide receiver. They just signed Kenny Galladay. So it's a very good possibility, really. I mean, with some good running back depth, the NFC East is terrible. You know, they could win the NFC East and then lose in the first round of the playoffs, but they could still do it. So
I mean, I think that argument really could be made almost for all of the NFC East, though, too. You know what I mean? Like, Miles Sanders has been kind of banged up. I mean, who says that Philly doesn't reach on one of these guys? And not say reach, but go ahead and take one of these guys. I feel like Washington is the least likely, obviously, with getting Gibson last year. And then...
Well, I would say Dallas is the least likely. They have Zeke and Pollard. Tony Pollard, him and Alexander Madison are both guys that I wish had a chance to start somewhere else. And they might when the rookie teams are up, because both Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott are on bigger contracts now. But yeah, I'd love to see if the Eagles invested in something, a backup running back, because one, Miles Sanders does miss the time. They're relying on Boston Scott, who's okay, but he's 5'6". He's a tiny guy. And guys that I never heard of ever. And I study this stuff. I don't know who these guys are. It's like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? They had Michael Warren in there last year, and then they just never played him. They had Elijah Holyfield. They never played him. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I just stopped trying to figure out what NFL coaches think. I just realized they're probably a lot smarter than me and just trust them. So, but Ryan, how do you feel about Rhamondre Stevenson?
I'm kind of in the middle of the road with him. I do like his size, obviously. I think he is definitely a bruiser. His short area quickness is actually pretty impressive for a guy his size, but his open field quickness isn't the same. He's definitely like a short, like you said, LeGarrette Blount was like my at best type of guy, and LeGarrette Blount was I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say he was an RB1 that year that he had a boatload of touchdowns for, I think it was Philly where he was a borderline RB1. So best case scenario that happens. Worst case scenario, he just isn't. He's out of the league in 2 years, like a lot of the rookie running backs are. So, as for Mike had brought up the Giants, do you think? I know a lot of teams. I think they signed Devontae Booker, right? They signed.
Yeah, the Giants signed Booker.
So do they still have Gallman?
No.
He's actually still unsigned, which surprises me. He played pretty well last year.
Right. So in that regard, the Giants have Saquon and the Giants have Booker. Booker is more of a third down type back, receiving type style back. Do you think Stevenson has the ability to be a somewhat receiving threat to where he could be that poor man Saquon for that offense if Saquon were to go down, to where maybe he gets to start and Booker stays in that third down role?
You know what Rhamondre Stevenson looks like to me in the receiving game? He looks like Jordan Howard, where he can do it, but
he makes it look hard.
Yeah, but everyone was like, Jordan Howard is so bad, and I watched him when he was with the Eagles. Like, he wasn't a bad receiver. And here's how Rhamondre Stevenson's going to be as a receiving back. Okay, imagine you're the linebacker. You see Rhamondre Stevenson, you're like, I'm not going to cover that guy. And then he's wide open, and he gets hit for a 60-yard touchdown. That's what you're going to get. But then it's not going to happen again. So it's going to be big play or nothing. And NFL teams obviously learn and adjust. So it's going to be a struggle for him in the receiving game. So in that case, I would put Booker over him. I blanked. I forgot that they signed him, actually, to be honest with you.
No, and I agree in a PPR format. But I'm saying, like, if Saquon were to go down, say maybe his injury flares up and he has to miss like week 1 or 2, and they draft Stevenson, do you think they could plug him in as like I said, a poor man's Barkley, to where he's their power back and Booker stays at the third down back?
I would think so. Yeah, that seems like a good bet. In which case, I probably wouldn't start either of them in a seasonal league, but I would fire Booker up in DFS for sure.
Right.
Let's move on to his fellow running mate, some guy that kind of clamored here at the end of the season in Ohio State. Trey Sermon, 6'1", 215. Like I'd mentioned, he's out of Ohio State. He had a 900-yard rushing season in 2018 at Oklahoma with 13 touchdowns. The following season, he only produced 300 yards, which was a split season with Stevenson. And then this past season at Ohio State, he produced 800 yards and 4 touchdowns. Let's start with Ryan on this one. How do you feel about Trey Sermon?
He was my favorite of the guys that we're going to talk about outside of the next guy we talk about. So he's my second favorite of the group that we're talking about today. The one thing I really didn't like was the fact that he saw his production dip so badly from his freshman and sophomore year to his junior year. And I know Stevenson had a role in that. That's why he transferred. But I feel like if you're that guy and you're that good, I just don't feel like somebody should be able to just come in and just completely dominate or take over your touches as much as it did happen. But he's a powerful runner. He's hard to bring down. He's a smart football player overall. Like, he's just a solid. He's a solid football mind. Like, he works to get open when his plays break down for his quarterback. Like, he's trying to hot route himself to make himself available. He is really good at run blocking. You notice that he is good at picking up blitzes and seeing them before they really happen. So I do like that aspect of him, but he does lack the overall speed to get to the outside. He's more of an inside runner, but he does run north and south. He doesn't try to be something that he's not and try to see a cog in the middle of the line and try to bust it outside. He doesn't have it very often because he just knows that he can't reach that outside perimeter. But as a player, I actually don't mind him at all. He would, I think somebody said something about him going to Buffalo. Jeremy, you might have mentioned him. I could see him fitting into the offense relatively well there.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, Trey Sermon is just – he got significantly better, I think, fundamentally at Ohio State. Now, I don't know if it was just that he was running behind a better offensive line. But, I mean, he definitely still – he just is a wild runner almost is how you'd like to describe it. He looks like he's putting in more effort than he probably really is. But I do like him, and I wouldn't mind him here in Buffalo. I think he's enough that he's going to go late enough possibly that he could definitely give you that little bit more physical edge type running style to him. Mike, how do you feel about Trey Sermon?
So admittedly, I'm not the biggest Trey Sermon fan. Ryan makes a great point. How do you let Rhamondre Stevenson come in and just cut into so many of your carries? And let's not forget, Rhamondre Stevenson did play 2 years at junior college. So it's not like he was on the team, hanging out, running with the scout team or getting some reps here and there. He was the new guy. And he just came in and he stole all that work. So I don't know why. I don't know. Was there a problem behind the scenes that we don't know about? There's always that possibility. He's big. He's fast-ish, not super fast. He's not overly elusive. He's pretty powerful. I don't think he's that good of a blocker. But what you said as well, he just doesn't have that second gear, really. My comp to him, he's like a slightly faster Marlon Mack. So he could be like a one-contract guy, like has a good season or two, and then just isn't really a thing. But
he reminds me a little bit of like what Alex Collins was for the Ravens. I see his career path being like that, like where he kind of comes in. He might not get that shot next year, but he gets a shot. When he gets a shot, he's got those like bust games to him. You know what I mean? Even at Ohio State this year, he was almost irrelevant in the first couple of games. And all of a sudden he had this stretch where he was just
I gotta ask
ripping off runs.
The Alex Collins thing, are you going to put the guns in his trunk if you're talking about the career path there? Or did something he got pulled over, he had guns or drugs in his car or something like that, right? I don't remember.
Honestly, I don't totally remember, but I just mean like he had the 1 year and then obviously it was off the field issues, but I just feel like he doesn't have, like you had mentioned, like he's not going to be the sustainable type running back where he's got more than 1 year or like one contract length on his career. And I don't know. I think he lost his job because he just wasn't fundamental. And I think he got better at Ohio State, but I just still think that he's just not that like fundamental of a runner. You know what I mean? He's not crazy about that.
Well, a lot of it too is, like I said, his blocking's not good. If you're 6'1" and 215, you should be able to lay somebody out as a blocker. You know what I mean? I've seen guys that are a lot smaller pick up blocks. I've seen Boston Scott stand linebackers up at 5'6". Trey Sermon should be able to do that. He should. And if you can't do that, if you're getting the quarterback hit, you're just not getting on the field, because quarterback, as we know, is the most important position outside of left tackle, most important skill position on the field. And if these guys can't protect the quarterback, you're just going to warm the bench. And yeah, Porkman's in here. Trey Sermon, but
he was in here with Rhamondre Stevenson too. I just missed it. I wasn't totally paying attention to the comments. I apologize, Porkman. But
this is also a guy that thinks TJ Vasher is going to be a good professional wide receiver, and I cannot get on board with that. Sorry, Porkman. You know what the best part is? I can just sit here and say whatever I want about him. He can't do anything except put a little comment in the chat. It's great.
He did also add this too. So that
was when I was talking about, are you going to put the guns in Alex Collins's or in Trey Sermon's trunk?
It is, maybe I will. Who knows? Although great, watch, he'll get busted with it, and here cops will be knocking on.
Don't cross state lines, man. That's just
yeah.
For you. Don't worry, Porkman. I'll just mute you. That's fine. You can say whatever you want.
Let's move on to, I think, somebody who's definitely more exciting for me than Trey Sermon is, but move on to Chuba Hubbard, who is 6 foot, 207, out of Oklahoma State. I think possibly in 2019, coming into this year's season, people would have put him in that top tier of running backs. I mean, he produced a 2,000-yard season and 21 touchdowns in 2019. Ryan, why don't you kick us off with Chuba Hubbard?
Chuba Hubbard.
Chuba.
So I like the fact that he was immediately productive. From his freshman year, he was basically the guy over there, and so you like to see that. But like you said, whatever happened this year, I'm not really sure. Like he would have been, I'd probably say a top 5 back in last year's class had he come out last year. But then all of a sudden this year he just kind of fell off, or it didn't really fall off. He just didn't. He didn't look the same. I don't know if you guys watched film from last year and this year, but to me, he didn't look the same on film from last year to this year. I do like his feet. I think he's got quick feet, good quick acceleration. I wish he looked a little bit more comfortable on the perimeter. Like he doesn't seem to want to go outside and use his. And he's not fast, but he is faster than you would.
No, he's fast. It's okay. You can just admit
He
it.
only ran 4.4.
Yeah, well, it's a pro day. It's fake.
It'd be fat. You'd think
He was
it'd
a
be
track
like a
star, Ryan.
Yeah,
he was a
but-
track star.
Okay,
He was.
but that was when.
It was back in like high school, but whatever. But Porkman's right on that one. Straight line speed, his side to side movement is just.
And that's why I'm saying I wish he was a little bit more comfortable on the perimeter. Like he doesn't look like he wants to jump out to the perimeter at the line of scrimmage. Once he gets in the open field, he's fine. Straight line speed, I agree. He's fast in straight line speed, but there's a lot of people that are fast at straight line speed, and a lot of people that are faster than him at the NFL level in straight line speed. So I just like to see him be a little bit more comfortable on the outside and be a little bit more agile when it comes to being out there. And the other thing, he has a lot of carries under his belt already. I think he had like close to 600 carries, 550 or something like that. That's a lot of carries for how many?
585.
Yeah, so I mean that's a lot of carries for a running back at the college level. But he was my favorite of the group. I think he looked the best on film, especially from last year, 2019, not last year technically now. So he was my favorite of the group, but there are some concerns. I think he's the one that has the most potential to be a 3-down back at the next level in this group.
Mike, are you gonna save the Chuba truthers out there? I mean, there are a lot of people that still have him as a top 5 back this year. That's not me personally. I do like his upside, but I just still feel like for me, it's going to be a landing spot dependent for him. I think he does very well in one type of running scheme, and that's it personally because of his lack of lateral movement. But I'll let you. How do you feel?
No, I agree. He's a one-cut guy. He's fast. He was a track star in Canada. I believe he's Canadian.
He is.
As far as last year, I know he had some ankle injuries and he had some issues off the field with their head coach, Mike Gundy. So that was why last year wasn't so good. He should have come out last year. Now, in case you're wondering, I didn't know this until last season. In order to be eligible for the NFL draft, and don't think about the years that a player spends in college. You need to be out of high school for 3 years. That's how Anthony McFarland was able to declare with only 2 years. He was out of high school for 3 years. So doesn't need to be 3 collegiate years, just 3 calendar years. Should have come out and struck when the iron's hot, just like how we should all do our trades. Get what you can when you can. He was coming off a 2,094-yard season. He comes back and he finishes it off. An injury-plagued year with 625 yards and 8 catches for 52 yards. So what was once a top 5 running back, he might be there's a possibility he's like a day 2 guy, like a late day 2 guy. He's not a day 3. But you know how it goes. There might only be one running back taken in the first round. In the second round, they could be scattered here and there. I like Chuba Hubbard. I do have some concerns. He's not very agile. Straight line, he's good to go. He would look good on the 49ers. They can make it work. He easily breaks tackles, but if you square him up real good, you're probably going to bring him down because he's at 6 foot. He should be more physical than what he is. I feel that like these guys, I don't understand these guys. They're big, bulky guys. Him, Trey Sermon, they're both 6 feet tall. Why are you not lighting people up and knocking them on their ass? Sorry, I didn't know if I could curse on here or not. Forgive me.
You're good.
I don't get it. These guys, you have to play to what you are. You have to know what you are. I've realized I'm never going to work for ESPN. And it sucks. I'm just going to keep being a mechanic and doing this on the side. It's what I do well during the day, and I enjoy doing this at night, and I'm never going to make a living out of it. If you're 6 foot, if you're 6'1", and you think that you're not going to be a track star in the NFL, then knock somebody out. Step up, put that linebacker on his behind. Knock off that defensive back. Get him on the ground. Just use the best of your ability. These guys, I think they're trying, are they playing Madden too much? Are they trying too hard to spin move people? I don't understand it. Just run. Chuba's going to get overdrafted in the NFL. Linda is going to come after me for this, and I'm sorry. He's going to get overdrafted in the NFL. If he goes to a bad spot, he's going to get overdrafted in your rookie drafts too. And I'm fine with missing on him, even though I do like him. I like really good ADP better than overpaying for a player, personally.
No, and I agree. I think where Chuba's going to go, which depending on his landing spot, is going to be that mid-second range. I'd rather take a player personally like Gainwell or Kylan Hill over Chuba. And I think for me, with the Hubbard and the Sermon concern with them not really running people over, if I remember correctly, I feel like they just don't finish low. Like they stay high. And I can see that from Hubbard on the basis of like he's a track background. So you start out, he's a sprinter. I mean, you're starting out in a low stance and you're progressively you get taller. So once he's out in the open field, he is upright too much and he can't necessarily lower the pad level to lay that guy out. And sometimes I believe Sermon, I think from what I remember off the top of my head, is kind of the same style where he's just so upright that he's not being able to lower the pad level to where the linebackers are. But I agree. I think it's tough for me because I sit there and think like he produced 2,000 yards. Like where'd that talent go? I mean, yeah, he had an ankle injury. He had off seasons, like off the field issues with Gundy. So I still like Hubbard, and I'm really hoping, like you had said, I mean, if he lands in San Francisco, I usually don't like to like drive people up the board, but I would take him in the mid-second if he landed in San Francisco, I think. Personally, I don't know if you would, Mike. I mean, I don't know if that's too high for you or too rich, but I just think that San Francisco landing spot could be really nice for Chuba.
I would like him in Atlanta. Personally.
Yeah, Atlanta could be nice. I think just like he likes that zone scheme, you know what I mean? Like that outside run, the stretch type stuff. And I think even possibly New York, depending on what they're going to run, bringing over a lot of the 49ers staff. And then
don't you dare, because LaMichael Pirine is there and it's Michael Pirine season and it's Kahlil season. Don't do that to me. I need one good LaMichael Pirine year, man. Just one.
All right, you know what? We're like best friends now because I agree. I want LaMichael Pirine to get that shot mainly because I own him in like 8 dynasty leagues and he's like my RB2 in all of them at the current moment because I decided not to draft running backs in the startups for some reason. So,
speaking of which, this brings us to a good point. Diversify your fantasy teams, everybody, because
exactly.
you have way too much LaMichael Pirine, and you can't be able to start him depending on what the Jets do in the draft.
Exactly, and I sat there and thought that, and me and Ryan are in a yards per startup. We just started with like the guys inside yards per, and I'm looking at my team, and it's not anything like I normally draft. And I go, I think this is the only team I don't have either J.K. Dobbins, Calvin Ridley, or Josh Allen. So at least there's some spread out. At least if one of them goes down, that I have some league that has some hope. So Porkman's telling me you have Pirine everywhere too. So.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, he was just so cheap. I mean, in startups, you're getting him at like 18th round. And like, he's the starter. I mean, what else they got? I mean, if they don't draft anybody, but
they have
Tyler Johnson. But
who's okay. But and Pirine was hurt last year too. So I'm hoping he does get a shot. at least.
I hope so too. I mean, he's not like overly talented, but I think he could definitely be a sufficeable 3-down back if he gets his chance.
Oh, for sure.
Why don't we, that kind of wraps up our rookie breakdowns. Why don't we, we'll start with you, Mike. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you for anybody who's listening and doesn't catch this live, and anything that you guys have going on over at the Dynasty Rewind.
Sure. You can catch me over at the Dynasty Rewind, and you can find me on Twitter at Rewind CEO. We broadcast Tuesday nights at 9:00, and we have Patreon too. We just do, some quick hitting. We talk about guys that probably don't hear about on normal podcasts like this. Like we talked about Tutu Atwell for way too long. His full name is Chitarius, by the way. Check out our YouTube. We do one-on-one series. We have mock drafts to drop every Monday. Usually Monday morning at 6 a.m. they're ready. So when you do your morning number 2s, you can start watching the mock draft. Except Maddie didn't send me the file until lunchtime today, so I uploaded that at lunch. It took 40 minutes to upload too. Good times. So mock drafts, we got one-on-one. I interview people from the fantasy community. First one was with Andy Holloway. Second one was with Bob Lung. And those drop Friday nights at 9:00. They're pre-recorded, so I'm not doing it at Friday night at 9. But check us out. Slide into my DMs if you have any questions about anything. We're pretty active. Porkman was in here checking in. He's pretty active as well. He'll answer any question, and he'll just be an all-around good dude too. That's why I love Porkman. It's my boy. But yeah, hit me up if you have any questions. And guys, thank you very much for having me on. I had a great time.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to come on with us as a newer podcast. We're a little rough, but you guys are doing great, honestly. And Jeremy, it's been great talking to you in that share group. I don't know what it's called. It's the 1-1 of share groups.
1-1 of share groups. That's right. I'm old, man. Sorry, forget me.
No, it's all right. I forget stuff all the time, man. I'd probably forget your name after this, honestly. Not that, but Ryan, why don't you let anybody know where they can find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mackie_FFB. Gonna be dropping rankings here right before the draft. Hopefully, I got my wide receivers done. Running backs, I'm getting started. Quarterbacks are started as well. So hoping to drop rookies here on Twitter here shortly. But yeah, like Mike said, my DMs are always open for any questions or anything like that. By any means, feel free. Mike, it was a pleasure having you. I listen to your guys' show quite often. So,
thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You guys are really good.
We try our best.
And you guys can find me. I am Jeremy. You can find me at PopesFFH on Twitter. Like the rest of them, you can reach out at any time. The DMs are always open. You can find any writing work that I have over at Yards Per and at the Sports Gambling Podcast. Also, I have some couple cameos over at the Fantasy Scouts. And other than that, doesn't everybody have a good night? And we'll see you guys next week.